What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. Well, the Democrats have officially lost a member of the Senate, just as they gained a member of the Senate. Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona has officially left the Democratic Party. Uh, what this means, well, we'll find out right here, right now. Here's Senator Kyrsten Sinema.
When you look at your voting record and the issues that are important to you as spelled out on your website, most of them are traditional Democratic issues, capital D, expanding healthcare access, abortion rights, LGBTQ rights, Path for Dreamers, and on, environmentalism, green energy. That sounds like a Democrat to me, no?
Well, I know this is really hard for lots of folks, especially in DC. But what's important to me is to not be tethered by the partisanship that dominates politics today. And I think Americans are tired of it. I think Arizonans are tired of it. What I'm interested in is working on all those issues that you just mentioned that I care deeply about and that I believe my constituents care deeply about. But I want to work on them in a way that is productive, that is free from the trappings of the pull of the political system. You know, the national political parties have pulled our politics farther to the edges than I've ever seen. I want to remove some of that, kind of that poison from our politics. I want to get back to actually just working on the issues, working together to try and solve these challenges.
And while I actually agree with what she's saying here, I do think a lot of Americans are tired of the partisan Republican versus Democrats. They can't just do what is probably right or needs to be done for a lot of Americans. It's a lot of political fighting. Kyrsten Sinema herself really hasn't done a lot since she's been in the Senate and has gotten a lot of criticism from even her own state and her own constituents that have even voted for her. And we've seen this with her approval numbers from people in her own state. Here's Senator Bernie Sanders, who's also an independent in the Senate, belongs to neither party. Here's what he has to say, and he'll also tell you what is going on in the Senate and what needs to be done here before the end of the year. Take a listen.
Here with me now is somebody who knows a thing or two about going his own way, Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Senator, first, you are an independent. She is now the third official independent of the U.S. Senate, joining you and Angus King of Maine. What do you think of her decision and also what you just heard in her interview with Jake?
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on Senator Sinema. She has her reasons. Donna, I happen to suspect that it's probably a lot to do with politics back in Arizona. I think the Democrats there are not all that enthusiastic about somebody who helps sabotage some of the most important legislation that protects the interests of working families and voting rights and so forth. So I think it really has to do with her political aspirations for the future in Arizona. But for us, I think nothing much has changed in terms of the functioning of the U.S. Senate. The good news is that we now have 51 votes. We'll have a majority on committees. It means that we can go forward and start protecting the interests of working families and deal with the reality that we are increasingly living in an oligarchy where the billionaire class and large corporations control almost every aspect of our country. So I would hope very much that with this new majority, Democrats will sit down and start fighting for the needs of ordinary Americans.
So I want to talk about some of those issues in a second. But first, you were a very important figure on the campaign trail for progressives ahead of the midterms, as you normally are. I'm sure you're going to be campaigning for candidates in 2024. The outgoing Arizona Democratic Party official, one of them says that he expects Democrats will run their own candidate against her. Is that a good idea? Would you support a Democratic opponent against Senator Sinema?
I support progressive candidates all over this country, people who have the guts to take on powerful special interests. I don't know what's going to be happening in Arizona. We'll see who they nominate, but certainly that's something I will take a hard look at.
Does she have the guts to take on powerful special interests?
No, she doesn't. She is a corporate Democrat who has, in fact, along with Senator Manchin, sabotaged enormously important legislation.
I want to talk about a major deadline to fund the government, and that is Friday. There's still no deal. Would you support another short-term extension instead of a larger bill to fund the government? And how worried are you about the government shutting down?
Short-term extensions are just a temporary solution to the ongoing crisis we face. Clearly, what I worry about is Republican efforts to hold hostage next year, if we don't get an omnibus bill passed, to hold hostage the government in order to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and that I will vigorously oppose. You got a lot of seniors out there who are not making it on Social Security today. A lot of working people who are approaching retirement, who have nothing in the bank. I don't want to see Social Security or Medicare cut. I will oppose that vigorously.
You know, while I have you, you've been in Congress a long time, the House before the Senate. There certainly have been some notable bipartisan pieces of legislation that have passed and been signed into law, but arguably funding the government is up there, maybe even the top responsibility of you and your fellow members of Congress. Why does this keep happening?
Well, I think it's happening right now because Republicans see it as an opportunity to hold us hostage and get demands that under normal circumstances they would not. Look, they have not been shy about making it clear. They want to cut Social Security, they want to cut Medicare, they want to cut Medicaid. And what they're saying is, hey, we are prepared to allow the United States government to default on our payments, bring the entire world perhaps into an economic crisis,
Senator,
unless you give us what you want.
I hear what you're saying about the differences right now, but over the past many years, Democrats and Republicans in charge, funding the government has just not happened, and we've been at this crisis point at the end of the year so many times. But I want to move on to a couple more issues that I know that you care about. One is the record-breaking $858 billion defense funding bill. The House passed that this week. The Senate is going to vote on it. You voted against the NDAA, the defense bill, last time around. Will you do so again?
Yes, I think I will. Look, we have 85 million Americans who have no health insurance. We have 600,000 people who are homeless. We have a dysfunctional healthcare system, dysfunctional child care system where working parents are paying $15,000 a year on average for child care. We have got to start protecting the needs of working families. The Pentagon is the one major agency of government which has never been independently audited. There is massive waste and fraud and cost overruns within that agency. So I think we can have the strong defense that we need without spending the huge amount of money that we're currently spending on the military.
I want to ask.
But I would tell you, Dana, I look forward very much to becoming chairman of the Health Education Labor Committee, and I want to tell you that in that job, I intend to do everything I can to lower the outrageously high cost of prescription drugs in this country, and we're going to take on the pharmaceutical industry. We're going to take on the insurance industry and try to end the situation where we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. I remain very concerned, as I said, about child care. I believe that child care in this country should not only be affordable, it should be universal. We got to deal with student debt. There are enormous crises facing working families, and I hope that the United States Congress, perhaps in some instances in a bipartisan way, will have the courage to take on the billionaire class who are doing phenomenally well. Corporations enjoying record-breaking profits while working people fall further and further behind. So to my mind, the issue is, will we stand with working families, take on big money? And that's what I hope to do in the next session.
Before I let you go, I want to ask about Iowa and New Hampshire. You're familiar with those states. You've been there many, many times in your presidential runs. They've always, at least in recent history, gone first in the primary calendar. But now Democrats are trying to move South Carolina first in the nominating calendar, a state I should note that You were beaten in twice. Would South Carolina first in the process be the right thing to do for Democrats?
Well, this is a very much, Dana, inside the Beltway Democratic Party issue. And a committee has made a recommendation. I'm sure it's going to be debated a whole lot. I'm sure there are 50 states that want to go first. We will see what's happening. But my focus right now is trying to do what I can to make sure that Congress deals with many of the major issues facing working families. And that's what I'll be focusing on.
We are out of time, but I just have to ask you, you wrote a letter to the president asking about getting paid sick leave to U.S. rail workers. Have you heard back?
Not yet, but that is, look, here's another, when you talk about corporate greed, the rail industry is a perfect manifestation of that, making huge profits, not giving their workers 1 day of guaranteed paid sick time. That is an outrage. That is an issue we are going to deal with.
Thank you, and we'll keep tabs on whether you hear back from the White House. Senator, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, so let me know your thoughts there. Senator Bernie Sanders, he's definitely a little bit different because he'll speak out against Democrats quickly. You could see here speaking out against Senator Kyrsten Sinema, who's been a Democrat up until basically yesterday. He says, yeah, she's the announcer there asked, did Kyrsten Sinema have the guts to go against corporations? He says no, she didn't have the guts. She's a corporate. What did he call her? She's a corporate. I don't know. Basically, a corporate lackey or whatever. That wasn't the word he used, but yeah, you can let me know your thoughts here. Yikes, and guys can let me know your thoughts here. She was, I believe, the only person that prevented them from raising the taxes on corporations in one of the previous bills. So on the Democratic side, Republicans didn't want to raise the taxes on the corporations either. So we'll see here. We'll see. Also, what are your thoughts on Senator Bernie Sanders going to vote no on the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act? And remember that goes up every single year, basically the amount of money that they spend for our country, for the military and the defense of our country. It's getting close to $1 trillion here every year. Now, of course, we need to defend our country. I find it interesting that it's not audited, it's not accounted for. It's just they just basically come up with a number, and it's more money every year. And they just send the money in to each department, and that's that. And you can see here how much money that is. It's like $860 billion or something this year. And that's every single year. It's a lot. And it's like you could, and again, obviously Senator Bernie Sanders not against defending our country, but you can see the reason why here. He thinks it could probably be, utilized a little bit more efficiently. It's not audited or anything along those lines. Who knows? Could they save $50 billion more efficiently, $100 billion more efficiently? Who knows what they're actually doing with that money, because it's not audited. So it's interesting. So yeah. Now remember, he's just one vote. So, take that with a grain of salt. Again, I have multiple different veterans in my family, so don't take this the wrong way. That's his opinion. So my grandfather was at Pearl Harbor 2 days before a Pearl Harbor attack, and my brother was in the Army as well. So I'm actually pro-Army, and don't get me wrong, we definitely need to be defending our military. But it does kind of make you kind of wonder, like, you hear those, like, stories about, they spend $1,000 on a toilet seat and, things kind of like that. And I'm just kind of, throwing numbers out there. But, the thing about it, Bernie Sanders, the thing that this kind of stuff that he says is, when it comes to in the words of Tupac, in the word of Tupac, they got money for war, but can't feed the poor. And that's the kind of thing. Every year when it comes to like almost $1 trillion for defending our country, even in the time of not war. Now we're threading the line a little bit now because of Russia and Ukraine and that whole stuff. And don't forget, we've sent a little bit over $40 billion to Ukraine in addition to that, which is actually only about 5% more of our budget. So everybody gets all up in arms about, not everybody. Some people think it's a worthy cause, some people don't, of the money that we're sending to Ukraine. That's only about 5% of our defense budget. It's in addition, but it's a tiny, tiny sliver compared to the amount of what we spend on defense of our country. And if anything, it's actually pretty, I don't want to say decimated Putin's army, but it's significantly wounded his army pretty much, and they're pretty much public enemy number one to us. They're pretty much our number one enemy. And if you look at the amount that we've had to spend really in aiding Ukraine to help them defend their country of Putin, basically a terrorist, coming in and invading their country, and what it's done to their army for 5% of what we spend every single year on the defense of our country. If you really look at it in terms of that, it's a tiny sliver of what the United States spends every year and has really kind of decimated their army, for lack of a better word. Yeah, so, and again, if anything, they're just defending their country. But on the other hand, what Bernie Sanders is kind of saying there is that the reason he's voting no on it, and, honestly, it's going to pass either way. It passes every year because, again, he's just one vote. This money should be used for people. Like, again, the Defense Authorization Act is going to pass either way. They always have some negotiations back and forth, and sometimes it gets a little hairy there. So, same thing with the government shutdown bills and the debt ceiling, which is actually a much more harder negotiation right now because the Republicans are talking about cutting Medicare and Social Security. So that's a different story there. But the question here is that they send almost $1 trillion to the defense of our country every year without any question at all. $1 trillion every year. But when it comes to cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare, money for the people, we can't authorize that. We gotta really think about where we're spending our money here. We gotta be conscious on the fiscal debt. We can't just be throwing money around. Right? You get where I'm going here. Republicans are talking about cutting Social Security. And if you think about Social Security, that's money that we paid into. We paid into year after year after year after year after year. And it's like, how could you possibly cut that? It's money that's essentially owed to us. It's basically a pension fund system that we paid into, and we're expecting a return back on it. It's basically what it is. My father worked at a grocery store for 30 some plus years, and essentially that's how the pension system works. So if you work in a different industry, what they did is they took a little bit of money out of his paycheck every week or every pay system or whatever. They took a little bit of money out of his paycheck that he paid into, and they had a little bit of a match as well, which is very similar to a 401k, by the way, as well. If you don't have a pension, 401k works almost exactly the same way. You put a little bit of your money in every paycheck, maybe you get a match, and it just grows, and then you take your money out later. It's exactly the same way Social Security works. It's exactly the same way a pension works. It's all basically kind of the same system. And then it gets invested in stocks, bonds, or whatever they invested in. You don't panic every time you see a little dip in the market and take it out, when it drops. Then it grows over time. And then you get your money back when you retire. So pensions, 401ks, IRAs, and Social Security are all very, very similar type of funds or programs, and you expect your return later on. In fact, I want to show you a similar story I just seen here. This happened just the other day, actually. Biden to announce $36 billion in relief for major pension funds to avoid benefit cuts for basically for retirees and for seniors. President Biden on Thursday this week announced $36 billion in financial relief to stave off pension cuts for thousands of union workers. Biden will be joined by Labor Secretary Marty Walsh and union leaders and workers to detail the funding for the Central States Pension Fund, which provides benefits mostly for Teamsters union employees that includes truck drivers, warehouse workers, construction workers, and others. So a lot of blue collar workers, the people that are lifeblood of the country, the backbone of the country, right? The money will come from the American Rescue Plan's Special Financial Assistance Program, the White House says. So this is money that's kind of already been allocated from the previous stimulus package. The Central States Pension Fund reported in August it had $7.4 billion in assets, and it had applied for $35 billion in relief. The White House estimates that retirees would have faced a roughly 60% reduction in benefits without this financial relief. So basically, the White House really just kind of provided, or the last stimulus package, which was really passed through reconciliation by the Democrats, a $36 billion stimulus package for retirees in this particular program for this particular for all these, I don't know how many millions of people this is going to apply for, but yeah, they would have took a 60% cut to their pensions. That's would have been terrible, right? So I'll keep you up to date here on this. The mainstream media and stuff like that doesn't talk about stuff like this. So this is part of just everything I would like to keep you guys updated on here on our YouTube channel. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments section, and make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on new videos. It's completely free to do so. Click the subscribe button and then the bell icon that appears after you subscribe. It's completely free. Remember, new videos come out here on our YouTube channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in at those times every single day so you don't miss out on any new videos. Thanks for liking and sharing these videos as well. You can click here to watch my newest video next, or you can click here on a really big video that the White House says you need to know about. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.